Good morning, everyone. This morning I found it a little difficult to get in Harrison. I'm out of the country also, and there had been a hacking on my WhatsApp, and I guess she would have. I sent a message with a new number, but I guess it missed Harrison somehow. So we got to get this show on the road. I hope she joins me. I was trying to call her a short while ago. If she joins, then we'll continue the program together. This morning I have labeled this program The Silence of the Lambs, and I will come back to that as soon as our devotion is through. I want to start by a text. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High. The Bible said, he that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide in the shadows of the Almighty. The Bible is speaking about a certain person. My God loved all creation, but those who should be expectant of his blessing, expectant of his protection, expectant of him answering prayers and things like that, are to be those who dwell in the secret place of the Most High. Those who have a time for God, those who have a place for God, those who understand God in a more intimate way, those who recognize his power over them and recognize their independence, and they're dependent upon him. Those are the ones he's saying. And he said, he that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, he is my refuge and my fortress. Two things he's saying there. He's saying, he's my refuge. He's a place I can go to hide, place I go for protection, place I can go to rally against a storm, place I can go to find peace. That's the refuge part. And then he said he shall be a fortress, meaning that not only I will keep you calm and keep you safe and keep you warm, but I will also fight battles for you. I will be a rampart there for you, that no one will be able to get to you. Yeah, and those are the blessings that he have left when he said, he that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadows of the Almighty. Our Father and our God, we give thee thanks for your grace and for your mercy, for your love, for what you have done for us in time past and what you are doing for us even today. Father, I pray that as we send this program around the world as usual, that somebody will be blessed and somebody will be drawn closer to call you blessed. May your mercy and may your grace follow us this morning. Follow all those who are in the hearing of your word. Bless us, O God, we pray. In Jesus' name. Now, this morning I said that I entitled the program, The Silence of the Lamb. And I know it always irked me and make me very disturbed when I see people try to separate the sheep from the lamb. And as if to say the sheep are adults, but the lambs are children. Friend, that's a lot of nonsense. A lamb is a sheep. A lamb is a sheep. So when you speak about a lamb, you're not talking about anything other than a young sheep or a sheep in general. When the Bible said they brought the lambs to the sacrifice, no one knows if they were old lamb or young one. All that we know, they were the lambs without any blemish. So the idea of separating a lamb from the sheep is pure nonsense. So this is what I want to say to you, that I'm speaking about the silence of the lambs. The silence of the lambs, what are we speaking about? But before we get there, I just want to do our promo. Maybe those who are listening to me on YouTube this morning, you may not know, but your friends may not be having me on the radio. Apart from being away from the country, I am still calling on you to be, just want to get this thing going here for you. I'm calling you to be, continue your contribution to the program. It is because of you this program is on air. No other reason more than you that this program is on air. And if you don't support, soon and very soon will not be on air at all. But I'm out of the country, and I hope that when I get back, in a couple of weeks' time, we can be back on air and all that could happen will happen. But as of now, I'm saying that we are only on Facebook and YouTube this morning, and it's not the radio station Facebook or the YouTube or the Instagram as it usually is. It's simply my YouTube and my Facebook. I'm just hoping that people who are out there will hear and they will come to understand that we are on the air this morning as usual. Okay. So I'm saying that those who have been given to the program, thankful for your faithfulness, and I've been thankful for what you have done, and you have kept us all these 23 years. And I'm saying I pray and hope that we continue this progress together. This morning, I want to speak candidly about the situation in Israel. I want to speak from the point of view of because of how silent the lambs are. What caused this to happen is that last night I was going through social media, and there I saw Doug Batchelor, Danny Sheldon, and a few other guys I can't remember. And what they were saying created in me this desire to have a program to deal with how we have to be as a people and to deal with downright hypocrisy. The silence of the lambs. And I want to show a video, showing two of them. I want to show the first one, and we'll speak about it. And then I will come back with that second one, and I will speak again. And this is where you will have all the issues of the hypocrisy that is going about now. To ministers and things like that. So this morning I want to go, where do I get my shared song? Here, stereo song. And I want you to view this video and speak on the other side.
Gaza. Earlier today, the Israeli military ordered the full evacuation of all civilians from Gaza City. Al Jazeera reports Tuesday was the deadliest day in Gaza in weeks. At least 30 people were killed in an Israeli airstrike on a school housing displaced Palestinians near Khan Yunis. Most of the dead were reportedly women and children. It was the fourth Israeli attack on a school over the past 4 days in Gaza. Al Jazeera aired footage showing children playing soccer at the school at the time of the blast. The Palestinian Ministry of Health in Gaza decried the attack as a, quote, heinous massacre against displaced citizens, unquote. Eyewitnesses said the Israeli attack resulted in body parts flying through the air.
We were sitting safely in the afternoon, somewhat settled. Suddenly, a missile was fired. I'm not sure what kind of missile, F-16 or not, Apache. The schools were overcrowded with people and the street was full too. Suddenly a missile hit and destroyed the whole place. There were bodies and body parts. Bodies flew. Body parts flew in the air. I don't know how to describe it. I can't. People sitting safely, selling goods, making a living to provide for their children. No one. I don't know what happened. Why would they hit us like that?
We go now to Gaza, where we're joined by journalist Akram al-Satari. He's joining us from outside the Al-Aqsa Hospital in Deir al-Balah in central Gaza. I know that there's a time delay, but Akram, if you can describe exactly what has happened and what's being described as the deadliest 24 hours in a number of weeks.
Yes, indeed, the deadliest 24 hours in a number of months rather than weeks. heavy bombardment taking place in different parts of the Gaza Strip, including Gaza North, Gaza City, Gaza Central area, Khan Yunis area, and also Rafah area. In Khan Yunis, only 27 people out of 56 people who were killed in the last 24 hours were killed in that area. One shelter that was used by hundreds of families, and one area that was used by families as a shelter outside of the school were targeted by 3 missiles that brought to that heavy loss amongst them. 27 children, women, elderly people, and youth as well were killed. More than 52 other people were killed. Nusayrat area also 24 hours or so ago witnessed a large-scale incident where around 19 Palestinians were killed and around 70 others were injured. Rafah also have been witnessing large-scale bombardment.
Imagine yourself as a parent in a situation like this, where you can't even feed or protect your children. That you have to, no ambulance is taking your children to the hospital. The very few hospitals that has remained. But you are taking your bloody child in your arms, head chopped down in legs and head and body, and you are taking this child to the hospital. And there are some people who, when you show them these pictures, they will say to you, Hamas. Those little children are Hamas? Let's look at
bombardment that has been taking the lives of tens of Palestinians. Gaza Central area also, besides Nusayrat, Al-Bureij also witnessed a targeting incident where around 9 people were killed in a heavy crowded area in the middle of Al-Bureij refugee camp, where thousands of displaced people were there and were trying to secure their very basic needs amidst that very critical situation, characterizing a great deal of lack to the essential supplies for the people who are in need. So the bombardments are technically everywhere in the Gaza Strip. The people who are bearing the brunt of those bombardments are the Palestinian displaced people and the Palestinians from Khan Yunis, Rafah, Gaza Central area, Gaza City and the north, who have been asked also to move from their areas. In Khan Yunis area, around 250,000 Palestinians were asked to head from the eastern part of the city to the western side of the city. In Gaza, around 300,000 Palestinians are already asked by the Israeli forces to leave the Gaza city and head south toward Deir al-Balah area and Khan Yunis and Rafah. So overall tense situation that has been exacerbated by the Israeli measures followed and by the adverse development taking place, not only because of the bombardment, but rather because of the very large scale displacement that reminds the Palestinians of the very first days of the war, and even worse than that.
Can you tell us, Akram, about the reports that flyers are being dropped all over Gaza City telling everyone to leave? What exactly this means? We are seeing that the Palestinian Red Crescent has said its teams are receiving dozens of humanitarian distress calls from residents in Gaza City where the ambulances and medics are not able to enter because the Red Crescent described the intensity of the bombardment of the area. What is happening in Gaza City?
Yes, the intensity of the bombardment in that area, Gaza area, is coupled with the requests that were made by the Israeli forces asking around 400,000 Palestinians who are living in Gaza, including also the internally displaced people, to head south. And they were describing the route to head south, and they were saying that Salah ad-Din Street and also another Al-Rashid Street area are the safe routes for the Palestinians to make it to the announced humanitarian shelters and routes as described by the Israeli occupation forces, while unfortunately there's no safe haven in Gaza, no one safe, no place safe according to the description that was made by the Commissioner General of the UN. That means a new round of massive displacement is planned by the Israeli occupation forces, not only in Gaza City, where 400,000 Palestinians are staying.
Piece in The Guardian describing footage broadcast by Al Jazeera showing children playing football in the school's yard when a sudden boom shook.
Context and the way people were living when they were targeted, you come to a conclusion that people were just not doing anything. They were not engaging in combat activities. They were not carrying arms. They're not fighting. They're just plain people who are seeking some comfort, some rest and respite to their life amidst that ever-escalating military situation, amidst that ever-exacerbating humanitarian crisis. They were trying to play together, I mean the children. They were trying to find some time of peace when their life was targeted and they were ending up dead. And I think also most of them, not only dead, but some of them are losing their limbs and end up like physically disabled, some of them losing their sight, which some of the people were reporting about. Some of the children who were injured were losing their eyes and losing their ability to sense things. So one of them lost their 4 limbs, a child, a baby boy who lost his 4 limbs. So you can imagine, and I don't think you can ever be able to imagine the level of distress that has been caused. People who have been communicating with the Palestinian Red Crescent Society are people who were trapped under the rubble of their homes. The story of Al-Hilo family that was targeted in Gaza City, and around 19 family people were killed, and the only survivor, who was 19 years old, was communicating with the Palestinian Red Crescent and was telling them that he cannot help his family and that his mother was killed and that she is on his lap and that his father is screaming from under the rubble and seeking help. And his brothers and sisters were also seeking help by screaming, and no one could help them because the Palestinian Red Crescent Society cannot go to those areas where some fighting is taking place. Otherwise, they would be targeted. And we have seen different incidents where the Palestinian Red Crescent Society teams were targeted, and even international organizations like the World Central Kitchen and also some other organizations, the UNRWA, were targeted, and they ended up losing some of their staff.
Yes, UNRWA, their headquarters were hit. UNRWA Commissioner General Philippe Lazzarini wrote today 4 schools hit in the last 4 days. Since the war began, 2/3 of UNRWA schools in Gaza have been hit. Some were bombed out, many severely damaged. Schools have gone from safe places of education and hope for children to overcrowded shelters and often ending up a place of death and misery. 9 months in, under our watch, the relentless, endless killings, destruction, and despair continue. Gaza is no place for children. The blatant disregard of international humanitarian law cannot become the new normal. Ceasefire now before we lose what is left of our common humanity. Again, those are the words of the UNRWA Commissioner General Philippe Lazzarini, the Palestinian Relief and Works Agency. Your comment on the ground, Akram, and if you can also respond to whether people on the ground are hearing about the negotiations that are taking place, well, it was in Cairo, now in Doha, around a ceasefire.
Landslide majority of the Palestinians are disconnected from the external world. They don't have internet, they don't have electrical supplies, they don't have access to any communication whatsoever. So unfortunately, most of them in the past were extremely interested. They were trying to go to the places where they have electrical supplies because due to having the PV panels or where they have been following the news. But now people are extremely busy surviving. They have been linking any talk about the negotiation and any analysis about any breakthrough when it comes to negotiation and a swap deal with the major developments taking place on the ground. Like whenever they talk about negotiation, they understand that the Israeli government is going to start a large-scale military step where they would be targeting Gaza. And the very same thing practically is happening. They were talking about the negotiation in Doha and Cairo in the media, and then the day after, the Israeli occupation forces started that large-scale ground operation in Gaza, and now they're asking 400,000 Gazans to leave Gaza City and move to the south of Gaza, and they're asking 250,000 to move from the first half of Khan Yunis to the other half of Khan Yunis. So people are pessimistic about the intent.
Okay, I think I capture the picture of what is happening there in Gaza. Now, what has brought me to the point that to show so much, and still have another video to show this morning, is I want once and for all to allow people who see themselves as caring, who see themselves as having an understanding of God and what his desire is for us, to see this thing over again and decide where you are standing on this issue. We have read about genocides. We have read about the Africa and the Middle Passage, the brutality of the Middle Passage. But this is the first time in our history we are witnessing a brutality that is on equal scale to any other brutality that this world has ever seen. And to think that there are folks, Christian folks, who are silent, and that's why I entitled this the Silent of the Lamb. But I was moved to come with this program this morning after listening to Doug Batchelor, to Danny Shelton, I didn't write down all the guys' names, who are pretty silent on the 9 months of this massacre and genocide, of this pain and this destruction of human lives and livelihood. They have been silent for 9 months. They haven't even been, as some say, both sides, they haven't been going there. They just keep silent as if this thing is not happening. And when they do speak, they say some craziness about Hamas causes harm. Those children who were playing football a while ago, playing football as children were, and bombed that they said body parts were flying into the air. That was Hamas. I'll tell you something before I go on to what I want to say this morning. Part of the reason why Israel is asking them to move here and move there is because and you know, for a long time, two things we always believe is that the Russian had this great army. And people say the Russian army, but Ukraine had laid that bare, that the army is a very unprofessional bunch, inadequate. They are not skilled in modern warfare. Ukraine have laid that bare for the world to see. Another thing that we always used to hear is that Israel had this profound army, the IDF, this great army, this great militia that can do such great things. What we are witnessing is that there are a bunch of cowards who kill children and women. And the reason why they are asking the Palestinians to move to the south and move to the central and move to the west and keep moving them, because they do not want to fight. They want the people to move and they can just bomb the building, hoping that the Hamas gunmen are in the building and bomb the building. But fighting door to door and house to house and alley to alley and tunnel to tunnel, they don't want that fight. So last week, a week before, we saw a Palestinian man was tied to a Humvee vehicle and drove through the street because they were fearful for their own self and they are committing all these war crimes. What troubling me, somebody should ask, what troubling you this morning, for you to be here this morning, is the issue of Donald Trump. And I'm saying the person who killed him, who fired at him, rightly was killed. We cannot have people shooting at people to settle scores. But Donald Trump being shot in the air have created, these guys I call there, are talking about it. They are silent to 38,000 people unarmed dying in Gaza. 18,000 are women and children. Some 12,000 children are missing. Another 1,000 or more children are without limbs and eyesight and all that. Not a word, the lambs are silent. But Donald Trump got shot in the air. And the lambs are coming out and speaking about things. 9 months of massacre. The genocide has been going on for 9 months. The war crimes have been going on for 9 months. For 9 months, there's agony and pain. For 9 months, young children are losing their limbs and their eyesight. Houses are being destroyed. For 9 months, and not a word from church leaders in my church and those in Pentecostal who talk. They speak in support. of the genocide. This is a Christian reality that we are facing, where we believe that because they are not Christians and Israel, for some strange reason, they side Israel with the Christian church, when Israel also like to destroy the Christian church. But they side Israel as part of that, and they side with Israel. And this massacre has gone on with not a word from a leader of the Seventh-day Adventist Church that I know. Not one word. The lambs are silent. The occupation of Gaza. Let me just give a quick history on this. In the Petercock Agreement, or the Balfour Declaration, way back in 1916, somewhere there, that had introduced the idea of bringing Israelis from all over the world and giving them a state. Before that, for 2,000 years, all the people in that region, the Jews, the Christians, and the Muslims, lived in peace and harmony. No one speaking about their land, no one speaking about ascendancy, until World War I and after World War I, when they decided to give them that land. And for some Christians who say that God gave them that land, I don't know which God you're talking about. But even if I go with your argument, the Bible says in Isaiah that God is looking to a new people. He has suffered long with them, and they rebelled against him. And now that land has moved on to spiritual Israel. No longer that physical Jew. And if you should take the argument further, the people, the Jews of the Bible, were the descendants of Abraham. And Abraham came from Ur of the Chaldees. And the Chaldees were not white people, or Arab-looking people, or Amorite-looking people. The Chaldees were African people. So even any one of the arguments you want to use, those criminals in Israel today are not the people of the Bible. More so, before I come back to Gaza, I want to deal with the West Bank. Now, Hamas came from Gaza and entered Israel and created mayhem, brutality, atrocities on October 7th last year. The West Bank, they were Palestinians living under Palestinian rule in the West Bank. And even though they had their own police force and their own security measures and their own social structure, Israel continued to go into the West Bank. And they will pick up young boys who may throw stones at them. They have guns, they will shoot youngsters. And if they suspect a youngster of trying to undermine any aspect of Israel life, they will ask his entire family, talk about a 14-year-old, ask his entire family to leave that house, and they will bulldoze the house. They don't care where that family live after that. This has been operating for the last 75 years. It has become more and more since 1985. But this is something that has been happening for a long, long time. But this is not as important as Donald Trump being shot by a would-be assassin. That is more important to my brethren. That is more important to the church leaders. That is more important. Listening to Danish Sheldon speaking about LGBTQ and abortion and speaking about the evils of that. But he is silent to the genocide, to the brutality, to the massacre that is happening on a daily basis in Gaza. And not him only is silent. You can go all through the church, the Adventist church, or through the other Christian churches, and you will find very few, any condemnation of the brutality and the war crime and the genocide and the vulgarity that is happening on a daily basis in Gaza. You will not find that. There's something that the Jews employ, they call administrative detention, where they will hold you. And when you are held, You'll be kept in jail without charge, without knowledge of charge, without knowing when you will be released. You just kept in jail. In fact, last week, a guy was released who was there for 42 years in administrative detention. No charge. Never brought before a magistrate or a judge. Just in that jail on administrative detention. It is said there are 9,600 Palestinians who are held under administrative detention. It is said over 50% are children. But there's not a word. I'm hearing folks speaking about abortion, killing of the unborn, but there are killing of children on a daily basis in Gaza, and there's not a word about it. Now, what is the level of this hypocrisy that I'm seeing? And even when they speak about LGBTQ, as I asked a friend yesterday, which is more ravaging this world, adultery or LGBTQ issue? Which is more prevalent? Which is causing more pain? Which is causing more destruction to our morals? Which is shaking the foundation, the moral foundation of the society? What is it? But they have no issue with that because there's a Christian right nationalism that is pulling all these things into these minor issues together, and the churches are joining with it. Some do knowingly, and some do, it just so happens that they can't see. In the West Bank, there's collective punishment. That's what I spoke about. Either hold someone shooting at them, they shot that man, they chase his whole family, and these Palestinians have large families, 16, 18, 20 in the same home, and they push that whole family out and bomb the place. This is what we are experiencing, Fred. But Doug Batchelor, Danny Sheldon, all these Adventist ministers, leaders in the Caribbean, leaders wherever you are, they have nothing to say. They are quiet. They are quiet. The lambs, the silence of the lambs. You are held guilty for what you do, but you are also guilty for what you fail to speak out against. You know, Martin Luther King, during the civil rights movement, he made a statement. He said, there's a time when silence is betrayal. Just being silent makes you complicit. Just being silent makes you someone who have joined, the silence make you have joined the ranks of the oppressors. Just being silent is a demonstration that it is not troubling you and you are not worried. Just being silent means that you are condoning the act. Just being silent means that you have no problem with what is happening. You can say otherwise. We can talk Hamas again as you like to talk anytime these questions are raised. But the fact that people could be dying in such numbers and suffering can be so widespread, and men who God have sent to work with him and bring peace to the earth has nothing to say or have nothing to say. It tells a story. It tells a story. They are silent when murder is happening. I want to share another short video here. Another short video before we get into where I want to go with this thing. Where I want to go with this thing. Yeah.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Lord Disick. Nearly every person that comes into my home comments about how amazing it
is. Run Health Ministry says the number of people killed in an Israeli airstrike near the southern city of Khan Yunis has risen to at least 71. Nearly 300 more are said to have been injured. The attack happened in the Masawi area of Khan Yunis. The Israeli military has designated this area a safe zone, urging Palestinians to seek shelter there. It says the strike was on a fenced Hamas area and described most people there as militants. These pictures are of the moment of the blast. An eyewitness has described the scene to the BBC, saying it was like an earthquake. Doctors at a nearby field hospital are reported to be struggling to cope with the scores of casualties. Well, here's the BBC's Nick Beake with more on the strike.
This is an area where Palestinians had been told by the Israeli authorities that they would be safe. It was a designated so-called safe zone, but clearly what's happened is there's been a huge airstrike here. What's clear is a lot of people have been killed, and that figure could rise sharply, it would seem. You talked about some of really shows a very graphic and distressing scene. This huge amid the rubble. You've got other relatives being consoled, bloodied casualties being loaded onto stretchers. And in the nearby Q8 field hospital, completely packed, chaos there. Some people being treated on the floor. It appears some children are injured as well. No word yet from the Israeli Defense Forces officially, but interestingly, the Israeli military radio station is citing defense sources, 3 defense sources, saying that this was a very significant strike. Now, a lot of people have been killed here, or whether it was very significant in that, as has been the case in previous strikes, the Israeli military have targeted Hamas individuals.
And we do know there has been fierce fighting in this area in recent days. Just talk us through what's been happening.
Yeah, well, Khan Yunis is right in the south of the Gaza Strip, where the fighting has continued, as well as in Gaza City, which is Gaza's biggest city, and other parts of the Strip as well, with people being reported killed every day. So this is the reality. I mean, there's one district of Gaza City itself where the authorities said that they recovered 60 bodies after a very intense 48 hours of military operations by the Israeli government. Of course, the government here says that the mission to destroy Hamas continues and won't stop until it's done. All the while these peace talks are going on, but no indication that they made a huge amount of progress this week in the conversations in Doha. Also, there were some talks in Egypt as well, and this is the bleak reality. This is the horror of what's happening, and I think the images we're seeing today speak for themselves.
Israel's army radio has said the target of the strike was the Hamas military chief, Mohammed Deif. Well, Hamas has denied this. Let's bring in our Gaza correspondent, Rushdie Abuluf, who is in Istanbul. Rushdie, what are you hearing?
Yeah, still no confirmation, denial from Hamas about this. They said what happened is a war crime committed by Israel targeting innocent civilian in the so-called safe zone. What happened, we have been talking to many sources in the area. There was the main strike that hit a building which housed some food distribution center, then followed by about 4 or 5 secondary airstrikes around the area. One of them was targeting also a civil defense car that rushed to rescue the people. So it's very complicated sort of area, because the area where west of Khan Yunis, it's called Al-Mawasi. It's the area that designated as a safe zone with about 700,000 people. They live there, very crowded area. That's why we have seen this huge number of casualties, about 71 confirmed killed, and over 200 people were injured. Doctors are struggling in 3 medical centers to save people's lives. The number of patients and the number of injured arrived very quickly to the hospital is huge, and doctors are trying to cope with the situation. About Mohammed Deif, he's the commander, military commander of Hamas. He's been targeted 4 or 5 times by Israel. He was seriously injured back in 2014 war. There is no confirmation yet from Hamas about him, but this is the highest ranking name or military chief And he's the one who followed the 7th of October attack by Hamas. He made this speech and he was addressing the people afterwards. So it's quite significant. If he's the target, it is very significant. The area is significant because it's the safe zone, and the number of people killed is huge in this area.
And we were just showing a picture of Mohammed Dave back in 1996, so a very old image, but just talk us through what we know about him.
He was, a mastermind behind most of the Hamas attacks for the last 25, 30 years. Mohammed Dave is a well-known. They call him the chief commander of the military wing. He was, until recently, during this war, when the Israeli intelligence released fresh picture of him, everybody thought that he was half a person. Like, he used to have a lot of rumors about him that he lost his hand in he lost his eye.
We come back to that. I want to say this because I don't want to run out of time without doing this. While we are silent of all the ills that is happening in Gaza, while we project only two things we project on a daily basis. Just this morning, again, I was listening to Danny Sheldon on this issue of abortion and this issue of marriage. You say you speak about marriage. And the only attack he sees on marriage, and not him alone. If you listen to all of these Christian people who speak about the attack on marriage, the attack on marriage seems only same-sex marriage. The attack on marriage is not the level of adultery that is peering out over the world. The attack on marriage is not the level of marriage and divorce that is spreading across the world. The attack on marriage is not how children are being trained and how the society is being constructed. The attack on marriage is simply LGBTQA plus whatever. Failing to recognize of the 7.8 billion people in this world, those who have shown themselves to be homosexuals are less than 1%. Much, much less than 1%. But we don't have the figures. I don't have the figures. But if you live in this world long enough, you will recognize the biggest issue facing this world and facing marriage is adultery or fornication. You could hardly find a virgin male or female anymore. Young people change their relationship. I tell you, I had someone speaking to a young lady who was 21 years old. And she told me she had sexual relationship with about 25 guys who she could remember. She's spoiled for life. Because the thymic region of the brain are pleasure centers will bring back memory to her. So she having a solid relationship will not go. And that's why they have very few solid relationships. Because the thymic region of the brain, the pleasure centers of the brain, store memories. And when a young man or a young woman have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 girlfriends, when they get married, there are things in store in the memory will come back during the marriage and have them unsatisfied in their bed sexually. Or dissatisfied, I should say. Because the pleasure centers have been tampered with all other experiences. That is more dangerous to the society, to the structure of the world than LGBTQA+. But they don't talk about that. They don't talk about racism anymore. What we are experiencing in the world today is young men and young women and children are dying on the sea and dying and being used by traffickers and all this because of the issue with immigration. The issue of immigration has more to do with central racism in a country than the unsettling thought of people coming through the border illegally. But my dear Christian friends and pastors don't have that to speak about. They don't have that to speak about. I was at a church in Brooklyn yesterday, and a sister said the sermons that come from the pulpit now is just motivational. Nothing telling you about what is happening, injustices that is happening in society, the issue of racism that is the most destructive thing that this society and this world has ever known, is never spoken about in the churches. When they speak about it in ways that you know they are embracing the ideas. That's where we are. That's where we are. The great injustices that you can see in the society, where the poor is exploited and manipulated, and they cannot bring the just issue to the court because of the cost. You are not hearing a cry from the body that God has put on earth to show justice. He said, I'll show you, man, to love, forget the text now, to love justice and walk humbly with God, to show mercy, love justice and walk humbly with your God. They don't care about justice and mercy. It is not something that is coming from the voice mouth of preachers. People, the poor are emaciated, battered and bruised and sent into a cycle of poverty. But the preachers who are troubled about LGBTQ plus A and abortion see nothing with that. There are some pastors who are in their 60s and 70s and have been pastors for 50 years, have never spoken about racism and injustice. Never. And these things have been with us for as long as we could remember. The intolerance of the far right, the intolerance of the far right Christian, the intolerance is a part of Christianity, not a part of the Bible and the teaching of Jesus. I want to make that clear. But it is part of Christianity to be intolerant. When people say, bring back prayer in school, and in Oklahoma, they put up a 10 commandment in the school and things like that. And some of you shaking your head, yes, bring back prayer. They said to take prayer from the school, but who pray? Whose prayer you want them to bring back to the school? When you say bring back prayer in school, what do you mean by that? What do you mean? That we have the Sikhs come in and pray in the school? Or Jainism come in and pray in school? Or Hinduism come in and pray in school? Or what prayer you are speaking about? Buddha? What prayer? What prayer? Shinto? What prayer you are speaking about to come back to the school? Speaking about Christian prayer. You're speaking about Christian prayer. And the reason why you're speaking of Christian prayer is because you are intolerant. God have told you, woman, how you can handle the issue of the school by having the religion set up its own school. So if you set up your own school as Seventh-day Adventist, as Methodist, as Pentecostal, as Catholic, then you can run it how you want. Then you can demand that prayer be in schools. Then you can set up 10 Commandment monuments and Virgin Marys, and then you can do that. But if your feeling is that in spite of, you can do it in the government school, it shows the level of your intolerance, unless you are saying that everybody come and pray and have one big monkey fest. But I know that's what you mean. You mean that's Christian prayer, that 10 Commandments edifice. The greed of the rich, the constant greed of the rich to theft and all sorts of things. It is not troubling the Christian body. It's not troubling them. In fact, they are trying to get rich also. But there's nothing wrong in trying to better yourself. But there are some of us who are both out the door trying to be rich. And we don't speak about that. We don't speak about that. We don't speak about greed. We don't speak about the exploitation of the poor. We don't speak about that. But we have side as one of the things Danny Shelton, I heard him say this morning, is that he's speaking as a Republican, and he's trying to play that he's speaking as for justice. So he's saying now, if I tell you don't do this, does that mean I'm a political stance? But you see, for those who read, I know some of us read, we never have a newspaper in our house unless we buy fish. We need to change that. You can't only depend on reading the newspaper when you buy fish, when fish can be out. You got to make it an intent. Let it be intentional that you find out what is going on around. Part of the problem with the Christian leaders is that, not all of them, but part of the problem, there are too many dumb ones among them who don't know anything outside Genesis and Revelation. So they tied up what God has given them for their power and for their salvation with the knowledge that they need to have to spread that message and make disciples of men. Yesterday, a guy asked me, well, how did Peter and them know when Jesus said, come follow me? They dropped their nets and they followed. And I told him they knew because of who he was, his history, and what he was doing was spread around Nazareth and Judah and places like that. They knew who he was. So when he came to them, they heard the stories. And he spoke, the Bible says, a way no man has ever spoken. So when he tell them, let's go, they know where they were going to. As I said, him is like you having a small computer store and Bill Gates passed by and he said, he looked to your store and he said, I leave everything, come follow me. You will follow. Because you know he is somebody dealing with what you are dealing with and he has the potential to better your life. And that's why it was so easy to say follow. They're asking themselves why the young people are not coming to church, and they are scared. Well, why come? When you have been showing this level of hypocrisy, why come? Why listen to you? When there's pain and mayhem and dysfunction in the society, and you are paying it no mind whatsoever. But you are targeting your guns. And I want to say that figuratively. You are targeting your guns on those who really need help. And I'm talking now about those who don't see abortion as a serious ill in the society. They need your help. Those cross-dressers and transgressors and homosexuals and bisexuals and pansexuals, they need your help. Not your ostracism and condemnation. But that's where we are. That's where we are as a people. The Bible said, woe unto those who call evil good and good evil. And they will preach that not knowing they are doing it also. Because I'm saying to you, the lambs are silent. They are silent on wrongdoing. They are silent on things that affect the poor. They are silent in a society of so much injustice and racism. They are silent. But yeah, they are ready for the homosexuals, the lesbians and the bisexuals and the pansexuals. They are ready for them. For the transvestites, they are ready for them. They are not ready for the rapists. For the one who practices injustice, for the intolerant, for the one who abuse migrants, for the one for those who are greedy, the greedy rich, for those who exploit the poor, for those they are not ready for those. They are silent. The silent tells a story. It tells the story. How can you, in your right mind, listen that 38,000 people have died, that people have sent to places in Gaza where they were told it was safe. And then Israel heard that there's one man who they need there. and will bomb the place and kill 71 because they're trying to get one man. And you are silent. You have no problem with that. But some crazy idiot fire and shut off piece of Trump airs, and that's an issue for you. Can't be. Brothers and sisters, it cannot be. I'm out here in Brooklyn, starting next week, a evangelistic program. It will be every night on this channel. It will be there, the church's channel also. If you will get your notifications every night of that program that I'm having, a prophecy program, speaking about the goodness of God, the mercy of God, the love of God. I'm speaking that none is ostracized, none is pushed away, none is demonized. I'm presenting a different God that you are hearing from these fellows. I'm presenting the God of the Bible. Next few weeks, God of the Bible here. Not only God of the Bible, I'll be bringing to you an understanding of immigration, why we're having such immigration now. I'll give you an understanding of racism and exploitation. I'll give you an understanding of why we're having all these right-wing government rising up around the world. I'll give you an understanding why the Christian church is moving with these right-wing movement, and they will not condemn the things I just spoke about. I will give you from night to night. I'll open God's word. Allow God's word to speak to us on the things that He has set before us. He said to Timothy, Paul said to Timothy, study to show thyself approved unto God. A workman that may not be ashamed, but rightly dividing word of truth. This will be my task with you for the next coming 3 weeks. You get a notification soon, and when the program will begin, then every night the notification will come. For those who are listening, and if you have not subscribed, you can hit the subscribe button, subscribe to the program. For those who always want to give to our program, I want to say the radio station carry more listeners on the different platforms. Not having them on this morning, there is good 10,000 people have not heard this message this morning. If you want that to happen, you want this to continue happening, you can do nothing. But if you want to change it, to make sure that we are on the radio every morning, make sure these 10,000 people or more hear this message. You can donate to First Citizen Bank, account number 1450203, 1450203, or you can donate, the account is TTT Limited, or you could donate to RBC, the account Terrence Brown, the account number is 1000791 703-24555. I'll go it again, 1000, that's 3 zeros, 1000-791-703-24555. It is your duty that God has given you to contribute to this program, to make sure in 3 weeks from now, next Friday, next 3 weeks after that, thousands of people will be able to hear this message. May God bless you, whoever you are. Thank you for listening. Till next week again, I say, Maranatha, come quickly, Lord Jesus. Goodbye.